Every time you think about them, every time you try to place the blame somewhere, you're bringing that feeling back up again. In my head. Hello, welcome back everybody. I do mental health videos here. If you're new, hit subscribe. Tonight we're going to talk about obsessing about a relationship, obsessing after a breakup. We've all been there, I think. So let's discuss what that means, what that looks like, what's healthy, what's not, all that's important. Let's dig into it. So to kick things off, there's a certain amount of obsessing that's normal after a relationship ends. You know, depending on the length of this relationship that you've had with this person, you've been with them for a while, chances are. Otherwise, you could probably, obsess about it for a couple of days and move on. But if there's obsession that's going on for a little bit, that could be because it's been a long relationship and you're grieving that relationship. You know, this person who was in your life is now no longer in your life, and it's not the same as a death, but it's very similar to a death, and you have to grieve the experience of that person not being around. You may have attached to this person in some way, and now that you're detaching, there's this sense of something that was there is not there anymore, and you're wrestling back and forth, and that's part of the grieving process, is wrestling back and forth with this feeling of their presence in your memory, in your mind, in your body, and then they're not actually being there in front of you, and trying to reconcile that. And your brain has to process that. That doesn't just snap change overnight unless you are really angry at them for some reason, or really detached already before the point of the breakup. Then maybe, sure, you can move on without obsessing because your emotions are kind of sealed off already. But if this was, breakup is never easy, so obsessing could be a natural part of the grieving process is what I'm getting at here. Now, so that would be like a healthy obsession, and I know it sounds kind of weird to say that, healthy obsession, but it just happens. It just happens. So an unhealthy obsession, well, hold on, before I get to unhealthy obsession, I have to make an exception here, because when you've been at the end of a breakup with somebody who was maybe emotionally abusive, maybe they manipulated you in some way, then you may get to the end of this relationship not really fully understanding why they're breaking up with you and what's going on. Everything seemed okay, and it could have totally blindsided you and shocked you. Maybe you were in therapy to make things go better, and then all of a sudden they're not even coming home anymore. That's a what the F moment, and you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. So that might cause you to be more obsessive because you're trying to figure out what's happening, and that's part of the obsession, is trying to understand the other person's motives, trying to understand, is there something different that you could have done? Chances are not. It's going to be different in every case, but if they were abusing you, there's a good chance that there was nothing else you could have done because that was really on them. But I just want to say that because there will be obsessing that goes on for longer than the normal obsessing after the end of a relationship, when that relationship was somehow emotionally abusive, physically abusive, whatever, because your boundaries have been violated. You may have some PTSD symptoms depending on what happened. So you're in a different state than when somebody goes through a normal breakup, and you're trying to process things. Not just process your own feelings, but also understand how you even got to this place in the first place. So that's going to add an extra level, and it may make you obsess more. This happened to me at the end of my last relationship, and I'll go into my own details briefly here, but I was in a relationship where somebody was emotionally abusing me. I was aware of that things weren't so well. We were going to therapy, and it's hard to leave out so many details, but basically I had every reason to believe that we were going to try to continue things. I was doing my part to try to continue things, and yet there was this insistence on breaking up, and I guess it doesn't really matter my personal details here. What matters is that I didn't really understand where this was coming from. It didn't make sense because my ex's actions weren't lining up with his behaviors, and there was this constant mismatch between what he would say to me and then the way he would behave, and I couldn't understand it, so I obsessed. So I think it's normal when you have mixed messages, when things aren't clear, when somebody's been emotionally abusive, gaslighting you, and all that other stuff, to have a longer obsession. And I think there's an amount of that that's kind of healthy, because we're trying to adapt. We're trying to understand what happens. So that kind of covers the range of healthy obsession. So when do we move into unhealthy obsession? What does that look like? I think for ourselves, we can kind of feel when it's getting unhealthy. We kind of know like we're spending a little bit too much time thinking about this other person and we're not spending enough time working on our own lives. We kind of intuitively get that. It may be hard to sense at first, but you'll know when it's so stressful and all you can think about is the other person. You should be able to think about yourself. You should be able to be alone and not feel like you need to focus on the other person and what they did or what they're doing or what's going on. So if that's your constant experience and it's been some time since you broke up, then there's a good chance that the obsession is not healthy anymore and you're not adapting to the fact that you have lost this person in whatever capacity. I should mention, you know, some people take breaks, so don't think of a breakup necessarily as it's the end of the person in your life. I mean, how do I put this? During a breakup, it's really painful, and it's hard. Sometimes we lose perspective that that person doesn't necessarily have to be out of our lives forever. This could be temporary. We may find somebody else. So I just kind of want to throw that in there just to keep some perspective here if you're somebody who's going through this yourself. I know it's painful, I know it's hard, and I know you feel like obsessing is helping in some way, but there will be life after this. So one reason why obsession may be unhealthy is you may be obsessing over this person to not focus on yourself and not focus on moving on. It may be too painful for you to move on, so you're trying to focus on them, and it's like our brain does a little trick, and it feels like, well, if we keep thinking about them, then they're still alive, or obviously they're not necessarily dying if they break up with us, but our brain kind of thinks of it as a loss, and it's like, well, if I still thinking about them, if I keep thinking about them, then they're still here, then they still exist, and I'm still attached to them in some way. And so we may obsess to kind of hold on to somebody, and what we should be doing instead is to be distracting ourselves from those thoughts, focusing on ourselves, focus on building hobbies if we don't have hobbies we're already engaged in, get involved in the things we want to. I know sometimes we fall into a depression after a breakup because it's such a loss and it's such a blow to us that we feel like it's hard to get out of bed, it's hard to do anything. All of our bad habits come out, but we have to fight back against that, and that's going to be like a day-to-day thing. Sometimes it's going to be okay to give into those bad habits, but that should not be a regular part of your life. You should be getting back to life as normal, and obsessing is going to be one of those things that's going to prevent you from getting back to life and prevent you from getting your feet back on the ground. So you have to actively work against it. It's not just going to end on its own. You have to go for it. You have to try, and you have to begin to accept that this person's not in your life anymore. Again, that's painful, but pain is a part of life. You can't avoid pain. So as much as obsessing is helping you to avoid it, you know in your heart eventually you're going to have to accept that this has happened and you're going to have to move on. And if it's any comforting thought, after the pain is over, there will be brighter days. You will feel better. You will find other people to replace whatever this person had in your life, and it will be good. I know it's hard to hear that now, but things will get better. Sometimes we also obsess because we're really mad and we want to blame the other person or blame ourselves. Either direction. We want to find a place to put our feelings, and we feel like if we blame somebody, if we blame the other person or if we blame ourselves and obsess over what we could have done or what they should have done, then we feel like, okay, we're somehow vindicating our emotions and it's going to make things better that way. But really what happens is we get stuck in this loop of obsession. We get stuck in this loop of obsession because we're not actually resolving anything. The feelings are still there. Every time you think about them, every time you try to place the blame somewhere, you're bringing that feeling back up again, and it's just repeating itself. You're not resolving the feeling. Instead of feeling the feeling and feeling the pain and feeling everything that you're avoiding, which will lead you to the other side of this, you wind up obsessing and you wind up getting caught in the obsession, and then you can't move on. It goes without saying that if you have obsessive compulsive tendencies, right, that after a breakup, those may come out. So just be aware of that, and obviously that would not be healthy, but also be aware that there is a healthy obsessive component to a breakup as a part of grieving. So don't just necessarily blame yourself if you are doing that kind of a thing. Another place where it becomes unhealthy is when you start to impulsively act on those obsessions and you reach out to the person, or you try to scream at them or stalk them or do any of those kinds of things. You know what these behaviors are, right? And that's like externalizing. Internalizing would be maybe harming yourself, breaking things that are your own objects, breaking your own possessions, anything, beating up on yourself in your own mind. Any of that would be kind of like an internalizing obsession, always making it your own fault and beating up on yourself for that. So those are things to be cautious of. Those are times when obsession is not healthy and you're not really moving on and grieving. And that's really what the solution here is. The solution is to accept what's happening, accept that this is going on, and fight against those obsessions and try to do things outside of what you're used to doing. What you're used to doing is being in a relationship with somebody and doing things with them. So you have to start doing things with yourself and being satisfied with doing things with yourself. Find hobbies that you're interested in. Find other friends and people that you can go out with that you don't have to talk about that person. You don't have to be around that person. And I will make a caveat here and say, because this is something that I went through, don't let other people tell you how fast you have to get over your breakup. And if this unhealthy obsession is going on, again, don't let other people tell you what's the length of time here, because the only person who may be able to give you an accurate estimation of that would be a therapist who knows what you're going through, who knows what you're struggling with, and who knows whether you've been abused or not, who knows what your tendencies are, and they can give you an accurate estimate of how long it should take you to get over something. But don't listen to people who are just your friends, who they think, well, you need to move on from this faster, you should be going out with me. Don't let people tell you what you should be doing. You know what's best for you, and even if it's an unhealthy behavior, you know if this is what you need to be doing right now, because maybe that unhealthy behavior is your only way to cope. Maybe obsessing over it is better than self-harm. If you need help, of course, there are therapists that can help you. There are support groups. Reach out to a trusted friend. You have resources. Use them. If you just need to stay under the blankets one day, do it. Do what you need to do to get through this, because this is a difficult time in anybody's life. So I want to know what you guys think about this. When have you obsessed after a relationship, and what did you do to get over that obsession? That's, I think, what people are going to really want to know about. How did you get out of that? Now, I want to try something new here. There is an app called Anchor where I can record things, and then you can call in and kind of respond, and everybody can listen to each other. And I think that would be a cool way to extend the conversation here. So I'm going to try to get up on Anchor tomorrow, which is when this will be released, and I'm going to try to record like a little extra and get your input over there. So search for me on Anchor. Anchor is the app, and look for Ryan Liberty. There may be two of me there. It's the one that has the same picture as my YouTube channel. That's what I'll be using. And call in if you have something to say. I'm going to try to get on Anchor because Anchor seems really cool. If you're new here, hit subscribe and hit the bell after you subscribe to get notified every time I do a video. We do mental health videos here, as you can see. And if you're somebody who's having trouble with boundaries, I just put up a free packet of worksheets over on my Patreon page. You can go over there totally free of charge, download them, and if you enjoy them, if you feel like you need extra help with boundaries, you can contribute a little bit to help me make this channel and get access to even more boundary worksheets and things. And there's a recording over there to help you stay calm. So it's cool. It's a bunch of resources for you. Check out my Patreon page. As always, thank you for being here. Don't forget to leave your comment below and check out Anchor.